The basement was my sanctuary, the one place in our house where I could think without interruption. I was wrapping my old boxing gloves around my hands when I heard her voice drifting down through the floorboards above. Alicia was on the phone again, probably with Susie, her best friend and constant companion in whatever scheme they were cooking up this week. "He'll never leave. He's too weak," she said, and I could hear the laughter in her voice. "Look at him, Suze. He's downstairs right now, probably fixing something I broke on purpose just to give him something to do. He's like a trained dog." I stopped wrapping the gloves and listened harder. The furnace kicked on, but I could still make out her words through the ductwork. "I mean, seriously, what's he going to do? Greg Mallory, the big tough repair guy? He fixes refrigerators for a living. He's not going anywhere. Too scared, too comfortable, too, pathetic." More laughter. This time, I recognized Susie's voice joining in from the speakerphone. "You could probably bring Dom home for dinner and Greg would just ask if he wanted a beer," Susie said. "Don't tempt me," Alicia replied. Though honestly, Greg's so oblivious he probably wouldn't even notice. I sat down on my old weight bench and stared at the concrete wall. 17 years of marriage, and this was what it had come to. My wife discussing my weaknesses with her friend like I was some kind of household pest they were trying to figure out how to manage. The basement door creaked open above me. "Dad?" Nikki's voice called down. "Mom wants to know if you're coming up for dinner or if you're going to hide down there all night." I looked up at my 16-year-old daughter standing at the top of the stairs. She had Alicia's sharp features, but thankfully none of her mother's developing cruelty. "Tell your mother I'll be up in a few minutes," I said. She also said to tell you that if you're going to keep pretending to be a boxer, maybe you should actually hit something instead of just wrapping your hands like you're getting ready for a fight that's never going to happen. The words hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken in my amateur days. My own daughter, delivering her mother's insults with the casual indifference of someone reading a grocery list. "Thanks for the message," I said, keeping my voice level. "I'll be right up." Nikki disappeared back upstairs, and I heard the door close. I finished wrapping my hands and stood up, walking over to the heavy bag I'd hung from the ceiling beam 2 years ago. I'd told Alicia it was for exercise. Really, it was for moments like this. I threw a combination, left jab, right cross, left hook. The bag swung on its chain with a satisfying thud. Each punch felt better than the last, and I found myself thinking about Dom Cruz, the mechanic who worked at the auto shop downtown. Alicia had been spending a lot of time at the gym lately, and Dom was always there, working out between his shifts at the garage. Funny how a man notices things when he starts paying attention. I unwrapped my hands and headed upstairs. Alicia was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove with one hand while scrolling through her phone with the other. She looked up when I walked in, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Annoyance? It was gone too quickly to tell. "There's my handyman," she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Fix anything interesting today?" "The usual," I replied. "Broken appliances, broken promises, broken marriages." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're so dramatic, Greg. It's just dinner conversation." "Is it?" "Is what?" "Nothing," I said. "What's for dinner?" "Pasta, Nikki's favorite." I nodded and sat down at the kitchen table. Through the window, I could see our neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, watering her garden. She waved when she saw me, and I waved back. Mrs. Callahan had lived next door for 20 years, and she noticed everything that happened on our street. Everything. "Oh, by the way," Alicia said, not looking up from her phone, "I'm going to be late tomorrow night. Work thing." "What kind of work thing?" "Team building exercise at that new hotel downtown. You know, trust falls and motivational speakers. Corporate nonsense." I nodded again, but something in her tone made me pay attention. Alicia worked as an HR director at a mid-sized tech company, and she'd never shown much enthusiasm for team-building exercises before. "Will Susie be there?" I asked. Probably. She handles a lot of the corporate real estate for our company events. Of course she would be. Susie Ferris, real estate agent and professional stirrer of pots. She'd been Alicia's best friend since college, and lately it seemed like she was around our house more than I was. Nikki came downstairs and joined us at the table. She had her phone in her hand as usual and was typing rapidly while she ate. "Who are you texting?" Alicia asked. "Just friends," Nikki said without looking up. "What kind of friends?" "The kind that don't ask 20 questions about everything I do." Alicia's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned her attention back to her own phone. I watched my wife and daughter, both absorbed in their separate digital worlds, and realized that I was the only one actually present at this dinner table. After we finished eating, I volunteered to clean up while Alicia went upstairs to take a bath. Nikki disappeared back to her room, leaving me alone with the dishes and my thoughts. I was loading the dishwasher when I heard Alicia's phone buzz on the counter. She'd left it behind when she went upstairs, which was unusual. Alicia never went anywhere without her phone. The screen lit up with a text message preview. "Can't wait for tomorrow night. Bring the costume we talked about. D." I stared at the message for a long moment, then looked toward the stairs. I could hear water running in the bathroom above. I picked up the phone and swiped to unlock it, but it was password protected. I tried our anniversary date, then Nikki's birthday, then Alicia's birthday. None of them worked. The water stopped running upstairs. I set the phone back down exactly where Alicia had left it and finished loading the dishwasher. When she came back downstairs 20 minutes later, wrapped in her bathrobe with her hair in a towel, she picked up her phone and glanced at it casually. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just work stuff," she said, typing a quick response. "You know how it is." I nodded, but I was already planning my next move. After 17 years of marriage, I knew Alicia's routines better than she did. And if she was planning something for tomorrow night that involved costumes, I was going to find out what it was. The next morning, I kissed Alicia goodbye and watched her drive away in her silver Honda Civic. She was dressed in her usual work attire, professional but stylish, the kind of outfit that cost more than most people made in a week. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then I got in my truck and drove to the office. Mallory Repairs occupied a small storefront in a strip mall between a nail salon and a sandwich shop. It wasn't much to look at, but it paid the bills and gave me the flexibility to set my own schedule. That flexibility was going to come in handy today. I had 3 service calls scheduled, but I finished them all by noon. The last one was at Mrs. Patterson's house, where I fixed her garbage disposal and listened to her complain about her neighbor's dog for 20 minutes. Mrs. Patterson was 83 years old and lived alone, and I suspected that our service calls were as much about having someone to talk to as they were about fixing her appliances. "You're such a good man, Greg," she said as I packed up my tools. "Alicia is lucky to have you." "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson," I said. "Call me if you have any other problems." I left her house and drove across town to the hotel where Alicia had said her work event was taking place. It was a nice place. Not luxury, but definitely upscale. The kind of place where a tech company might actually hold a team-building event. I parked across the street and called the hotel's main number. "Good afternoon. This is the Riverside Inn. How can I help you?" "Hi. I'm supposed to pick up my wife from a corporate event tonight, but I can't remember what time it ends. It's for Meridian Tech?" There was a pause while the receptionist checked her computer. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't see any corporate events scheduled for Meridian Tech today. Are you sure you have the right hotel?" "Let me double-check with my wife," I said. "Thanks for your help." I hung up and sat in my truck, staring at the hotel entrance. No corporate event. No team-building exercise. Just another lie in what was apparently becoming a long string of lies. I drove home and spent the afternoon in my basement, hitting the heavy bag and thinking. By the time Alicia got home from work, I had a plan. "How was your day?" she asked, setting her purse down on the kitchen counter. "Good," I said. Mrs. Patterson's garbage disposal is working again, and the Hendersons' refrigerator just needed a new water filter. Nothing too exciting. "That's nice, honey." She was already looking at her phone again. "I need to get ready for tonight. The event starts at 7. Need any help picking out an outfit?" "No, I've got it handled. It's just casual business attire." I nodded and watched her head upstairs. Casual business attire. Right. At 6:30, Alicia came back downstairs wearing a black dress that was definitely not casual business attire. It was the kind of dress she wore when we went out for our anniversary dinner. Elegant, form-fitting, and expensive. "Wow," I said. "That's quite an outfit for trust falls and motivational speakers." She looked down at herself as if she'd forgotten what she was wearing. "Oh, this? We're going to dinner afterward. I figured I should look nice." "Makes sense," I said. "Have fun." She kissed me on the cheek, a quick, perfunctory gesture, and headed for the door. I watched through the window as she got in her car and drove away. Then I waited exactly 10 minutes before following her. Alicia didn't go to the hotel. Instead, she drove to the other side of town and pulled into the parking lot of Cruz Auto Restoration. I parked down the street and watched as she got out of her car and walked around to the back of the building. I waited another 5 minutes, then got out of my truck and walked closer. The auto shop was closed for the day, but there were lights on in the back room, and I could see 2 figures moving around inside. I crept closer to the window and looked inside. Alicia was there, all right. And so was Dom Cruz. They were both wearing costumes. Alicia was dressed as Catwoman, complete with a black leather outfit and mask, and Dom was wearing what looked like a Tarzan costume. They were laughing and drinking wine, and Dom had his arm around my wife's waist. I watched for about 30 seconds, long enough to see Dom lean down and kiss Alicia on the lips, long enough to see her kiss him back, long enough to confirm what I'd already suspected. Then I walked back to my truck and drove home. I spent the rest of the evening in my basement, alternating between hitting the heavy bag and sitting on the weight bench, staring at the wall. By the time Alicia came home at 11:30, I had worked through my initial anger and moved on to something much more dangerous. Cold, calculating fury. "How was the team building?" I asked when she came downstairs to say goodnight. "Oh, you know," she said with a yawn. "Boring corporate stuff. I'm exhausted." "I bet," I said. "Those trust falls can really take it out of you." She looked at me sharply, and for a moment I thought she was going to say something. Instead, she just nodded and headed back upstairs. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close, then I went upstairs to my home office and turned on my computer. If Alicia wanted to play games, I was going to learn the rules. The next morning started like any other. Alicia got up, showered, and left for work without saying much beyond "good morning" and "see you tonight." I watched her drive away, then I got dressed and headed out for my own day of service calls. But today was different. Today I was paying attention to things I'd been ignoring for months. My first stop was the Henderson house, where I was installing a new water heater. Mrs. Henderson was a talker, and she loved to gossip about everyone in the neighborhood. "You know," she said while I worked, "I saw your wife at the gym yesterday morning. She and that Susie Ferris were talking to that handsome young mechanic. What's his name? Dom something?" "Dom Cruz," I said, not looking up from my work. "That's right. He's quite the charmer, isn't he? All the ladies seem to think so." I tightened a fitting and nodded. "I'm sure they do. Of course, I'm sure it's perfectly innocent. Your Alicia's always been so professional, though I have to say she's been looking particularly good lately. New workout routine, maybe." "Maybe," I said. Mrs. Henderson kept talking, but I stopped listening. Instead, I was thinking about the timeline. Alicia had started going to the gym 3 months ago, around the same time she'd begun working late and taking mysterious phone calls. I finished the water heater installation and moved on to my next appointment. but my mind was elsewhere. I was starting to see patterns that I'd missed before, or maybe that I'd chosen not to see. At lunch, I stopped by the Pit, the bar owned by my best friend Rich Kane. Rich was an ex-bouncer who'd bought the place 5 years ago and turned it into the kind of neighborhood joint where everyone knew your name and your business. "You look like hell," Rich said when I walked in. "What's eating you?" "Just work stuff," I said, taking a seat at the bar. "Give me a beer." Rich opened a bottle and set it in front of me. "Work stuff, huh? Since when does fixing refrigerators put that look on your face?" I took a long drink and considered how much to tell him. Rich and I had been friends since high school, and he was one of the few people I trusted completely. "Hypothetically," I said, "if you found out your wife was cheating on you, what would you do?" Rich's expression went serious. "Hypothetically? Yeah. I'd make sure I was right first. Then I'd decide whether I wanted to fix it or end it. And if you wanted to end it, I'd make sure I came out on top. You don't get even by swinging wild, Greg. You make them sweat first. Give them the show they want, then pull the rug out from under them." I nodded and took another drink. "Hypothetically?" "Right," Rich said. "Hypothetically." That afternoon, I made a decision. Instead of going home after work, I drove to the gym where Alicia spent so much of her time. It was one of those upscale fitness centers with juice bars and personal trainers, the kind of place that charged more per month than some people made in a week. I parked outside and waited. At 5:15, Alicia's Honda pulled into the parking lot. She got out, grabbed her gym bag, and walked inside. 10 minutes later, Dom Cruz's pickup truck arrived. I waited another hour, then drove home. I had confirmation, but I needed more than that. I needed evidence. That evening, Alicia came home in her workout clothes, looking flushed and energetic. "Good workout?" I asked. "The best," she said with a smile. "I'm really starting to see results." "I bet you are." She headed upstairs to shower, leaving her gym bag by the front door. I waited until I heard the water running. Then I unzipped the bag and looked inside. Most of it was what you'd expect: workout clothes, water bottle, towel. But tucked into a side pocket, I found something interesting: a small phone I'd never seen before. I turned it on and scrolled through the messages. They were all from Dom, and they left no doubt about what was going on between him and my wife. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Wear the red outfit. Last night was incredible. You're amazing. Your husband doesn't deserve you. You know that, right?" I took photos of the messages with my own phone, then put the burner phone back exactly where I'd found it. By the time Alicia came downstairs, I was sitting in the living room, watching television like nothing had happened. "What are you watching?" she asked, settling onto the couch next to me. "Just the news," I said. "Same old stuff. Politicians lying, businesses failing, marriages falling apart." She glanced at me sideways. "You're in a cheerful mood tonight." "Just calling it like I see it." We sat in silence for a while, both of us pretending to watch the television. But I could feel the tension building between us, like the air pressure before a storm. The next few days followed a similar pattern. I went to work, made my service calls, and gathered information. I followed Alicia to the gym twice more, confirming that she was meeting Dom there regularly. I also started paying attention to her phone calls and text messages, learning the rhythm of her deception. What surprised me most was how elaborate it had become. This wasn't a simple affair. It was a full-scale alternate life, complete with cover stories, alibis, and a supporting cast that included Susie Farris. On Thursday evening, I got my chance to see the whole operation in action. Nikki had a talent show at school, and Alicia had promised to attend. We sat together in the auditorium, playing the part of the happy couple, while our daughter performed a piano piece she'd been practicing for months. During intermission, I went to the bathroom and overheard Alicia talking to a group of her friends in the lobby. "Greg's such a creature of habit," she was saying. He'll just mope around the house and fix things. He's safe, like a broken lamp that you keep meaning to throw away but never quite get around to it." The women laughed, and I heard Susie's voice join the conversation. "At least he's useful," Susie said. "My ex-husband couldn't even change a light bulb." "True," Alicia replied. "And he's not going anywhere. Too weak to leave, too scared to confront me about anything. It's actually kinda perfect." I stood in the bathroom doorway for a moment, listening to my wife describe me like I was a piece of furniture she was tired of but too lazy to replace. Then I walked back into the lobby. "Ladies," I said with a smile, "enjoying the show?" They all turned to look at me, and I saw something flicker across Alicia's face. Surprise, guilt, fear. "Oh, hi, honey," she said. "We were just talking about how talented Nikki is." "I'm sure you were," I said. "Actually, I was just thinking the same thing. Sometimes things break because someone keeps dropping them, but sometimes they're stronger than people think." The group went quiet, and I could see them trying to figure out if there was a hidden meaning in my words. I smiled and walked away, leaving them to wonder. When we got home that night, Alicia was unusually quiet. She went to bed early, claiming she had a headache, and I spent the evening in my basement, planning my next move. I was done being the broken lamp. It was time to show them what happened when someone tried to throw me away. The next morning, I made a phone call to the gym where Alicia and Dom spent so much time together. I spoke to the membership director, a young woman named Jessica, who sounded eager to help. "I'd like to cancel my wife's membership," I said. "Alicia Mallory." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. May I ask the reason for the cancellation?" "She's been having an inappropriate relationship with one of your other members, and I don't think it's healthy for her to continue coming there." There was a pause. "I see. Well, we'll need to speak with Mrs. Mallory directly before we can cancel her membership." "That's fine," I said. "But I thought you should know that we're considering legal action against the gym for facilitating adultery on your premises." Another pause, longer this time. "Legal action? My wife and Dom Cruz have been using your facility to conduct an extramarital affair. I have documentation of their meetings, and I'm exploring my options. I'll need to speak with my manager about this." "You do that," I said. "In the meantime, I'd appreciate it if you could make a note in both of their files, for liability purposes." I hung up and smiled. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I was beginning to understand what Rich had meant about making them sweat. That afternoon, I got a call from Alicia. "Greg, the strangest thing happened at the gym today. They said someone called and tried to cancel my membership, claiming I was having an affair. Can you believe that?" "That is strange," I said. "Who would do something like that?" "I have no idea, but they're investigating it, and they might have to involve the police if it happens again." "Well, I hope they catch whoever it was," I said. "People shouldn't spread rumors about things they don't understand." "Exactly," she said, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. That evening, I decided to take a more direct approach. I drove to Cruz Auto Restoration and parked across the street. Dom's truck was in the lot and the lights were on in the shop. I walked across the street and tried the front door. It was locked, but I could see Dom working on a car in the main bay. I knocked on the glass, and he looked up. He was a big man, probably 6'2", and well-muscled from his work and his time at the gym. The kind of guy who was used to intimidating people with his presence. But when he opened the door and saw me standing there, something in his expression changed. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I'm Greg Mallory," I said, "Alicia's husband." His face went pale. "Oh, what can I do for you?" "I wanted to thank you," I said. "Thank me. For helping me understand what kind of person my wife really is. It's been very educational." Dom looked around nervously, like he was hoping someone would appear to help him. "Look, man, I don't know what you think is going on." "I know exactly what's going on," I said. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I don't understand. Sure you do. You're sleeping with my wife, and now you have to decide whether you want to keep doing it or whether you want to walk away before this gets ugly. Dom straightened up, trying to look tough. Are you threatening me? I'm giving you information, I said. What you do with it is up to you. I turned and walked back to my truck, leaving him standing in the doorway. As I drove away, I could see him in my rearview mirror, still watching me. When I got home, Alicia was waiting in the kitchen. She looked agitated, and her phone was in her hand. Where were you? She asked. Just running some errands, I said. Why? Dom called. He said you went to his shop. Did he? What else did he say? He said you threatened him. I laughed. I thanked him. If he took that as a threat, maybe he's got a guilty conscience about something. Alicia stared at me for a long moment. Greg, what's going on? You've been acting strange lately. Have I? Or have you just started paying attention? What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm tired of being treated like furniture, Alicia. I'm tired of being ignored and dismissed and talked about like I'm not even here. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't, I said. Just like you don't know why Dom Cruz thinks I threatened him, and you don't know why someone tried to cancel your gym membership. Her face went white. You? Me what? You called the gym. Did I? Prove it. We stared at each other across the kitchen, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had her full attention. This isn't over, she said finally. No, I agreed. It's not. She grabbed her phone and headed upstairs, probably to call Susie and Dom and figure out their next move. But I wasn't worried. I was just getting started. Saturday morning brought rain and the kind of gray sky that made everything look washed out and depressing. I was in my basement, working out my frustrations on the heavy bag, when I heard voices upstairs. Alicia was on the phone again, but this time she wasn't trying to hide the conversation. I'm telling you, Suze, he knows something, she was saying. He went to Dom's shop yesterday and basically threatened him. I stopped hitting the bag and listened. No, he didn't say anything directly, but Dom was spooked, and someone called the gym trying to cancel my membership. I could hear Susie's voice through the speakerphone, but I couldn't make out the words. I don't know, Alicia continued. Maybe we should cool it for a while. Let things settle down. More murmuring from Susie. You're probably right. Greg's all bark and no bite. He's never actually done anything about anything in his entire life. That stung, but it also told me something important. They were rattled. My little visit to Dom had accomplished more than I'd expected. I finished my workout and headed upstairs. Alicia was in the kitchen, making coffee and scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I walked in, and I could see the calculation in her eyes. Good morning, she said, with forced cheerfulness. Sleep well? Like a baby, I said. You? Fine. Listen, I was thinking maybe we should do something together today. It's been a while since we spent time as a family. What did you have in mind? I don't know. Maybe we could take Nikki to that new shopping center. Make a day of it. I poured myself a cup of coffee and considered her offer. Alicia suggesting family time was about as likely as snow in July, which meant she was trying to keep me occupied and away from whatever she had planned. Sounds great, I said, but I've got a few errands to run first. Why don't you and Nikki go ahead and I'll catch up with you later? Her smile faltered slightly. What kind of errands? Just business stuff. Some invoices to deliver, equipment to pick up, nothing interesting. On Saturday? The repair business doesn't keep regular hours, you know that. She nodded, but I could see her mind working. Well, okay, but try not to be too long. I'll do my best. After breakfast, I watched Alicia and Nikki leave for their shopping trip. Then I got in my truck and drove across town to the public library. I needed to do some research, and I didn't want to use my home computer. I spent 2 hours learning everything I could about Dom Cruz. Social media profiles, business records, court documents. Everything was there if you knew where to look. What I found was interesting. Dom had been married before, to a woman named Maria Santos. They'd divorced 3 years ago, and according to the court records, adultery had been a factor. There had also been some financial irregularities with his business, nothing criminal, but enough to suggest that Dom wasn't as successful as he liked people to think. I also looked up Susie Ferris. Her real estate business was struggling, and she'd had several client complaints filed against her in the past year. More importantly, I found something I hadn't known before. Susie had worked for my company briefly, about 5 years ago. I'd fired her for stealing from petty cash and falsifying expense reports. Suddenly, a lot of things started making sense. I left the library and drove to the bank. I had some financial housekeeping to do. "Good afternoon, Mr. Mallory," said Janet, the branch manager. "What can I help you with today?" "I need to make some changes to our accounts," I said, "starting with the joint checking account." "What kind of changes?" "I want to transfer most of the money to my business account. Leave just enough to cover the monthly bills." Janet looked uncomfortable. "That's a significant change. Have you discussed this with Mrs. Mallory?" "It's my money, Janet. I earned it, and I can move it wherever I want." "Of course, but nothing. I also want to cancel the credit cards that are linked to the joint account." "Mr. Mallory, I really think you should discuss this with your wife first." "Why? So she can spend it all before I have a chance to protect it?" Janet's expression changed. "I see. Well, legally, you have every right to manage your own accounts. Let me get the paperwork." It took an hour to complete all the transfers and cancellations. When I was finished, Alicia would have access to exactly enough money to pay the mortgage, utilities, and groceries. Everything else was now under my control. My next stop was the phone company. I wanted to add a tracking feature to our family plan, something that would let me monitor Alicia's location without her knowledge. The customer service representative was helpful, and within 30 minutes, I had access to real-time GPS data for all the phones on our account. By the time I got home, Alicia and Nikki were back from their shopping trip. They were in the living room, surrounded by bags and boxes. "How was the shopping?" I asked. "Great," Nikki said. "Mom bought me some new clothes for school." "That's nice. Find everything you needed?" "And more," Alicia said. "You know how it is." "I do indeed." That evening, we had dinner together like a normal family. Alicia was making an effort to be charming and attentive, asking about my day and laughing at my jokes. It was a good performance, but that's all it was, a performance. After dinner, I excused myself and went to my home office. I had more research to do. I started by creating a timeline of Alicia's affair, using the information I'd gathered from her burner phone and my own observations. The pattern was clear. She was meeting Dom at least twice a week, usually at the gym or his shop. Susie was providing cover stories and alibis, and the three of them had developed an elaborate system of lies to keep me in the dark. But now I was in the light, and I could see everything. I also started documenting my own actions. If this situation escalated, and I was pretty sure it would, I wanted to make sure I stayed on the right side of the law. Everything I was doing was perfectly legal, moving my own money, tracking phones I was paying for, canceling credit cards in my name. Around 10 o'clock, I heard Alicia's phone ring upstairs. I opened the tracking app and watched as her location started moving. She was leaving the house. I waited 5 minutes, then got in my truck and followed her GPS signal. She was heading toward the other side of town, toward Dom's shop. I parked down the street and watched as she got out of her car and walked around to the back of the building. This time, I was prepared. I had a small digital camera with a zoom lens, and I took photos of her entering the building. I waited for an hour, taking pictures whenever I saw movement in the windows. When Alicia finally came out, her hair was messed up and her clothes were wrinkled. She looked around nervously before getting in her car and driving away. I followed her home at a distance, then waited in my truck until I saw the lights go on in our bedroom. When I finally went inside, Alicia was in the bathroom taking a shower. "How was your evening?" I called through the bathroom door. "Quiet," she called back. "I just watched some television and went to bed early." "That's nice," I said. "Very relaxing." The next morning, I put my plan into action. I started by sending an email to the HR department at Alicia's company. I attached some of the photos I'd taken the night before, along with a brief explanation of what they showed. "I thought you should know that one of your employees is using company time and resources to conduct an extramarital affair," I wrote. "This reflects poorly on your organization's values and could expose you to liability issues." I sent similar emails to the Better Business Bureau and the local Chamber of Commerce, both of which had Dom's auto shop listed as members. Then I called Dom's ex-wife, Maria Santos. I'd found her phone number in the public records, and I figured she might be interested in knowing what her ex-husband was up to. "Mrs. Santos, this is Greg Mallory. I believe you know my wife, Alicia, and your ex-husband, Dom." There was a long pause. "What do you want?" "I thought you might like to know that they're having an affair. I have photos if you're interested." Another pause. "Send them to me." I emailed her the pictures, then sat back and waited for the fireworks to begin. They didn't take long. At 11:30, my phone rang. It was Alicia, and she sounded frantic. "Greg, something terrible has happened. Someone sent photos to my boss, and now I'm suspended pending an investigation." "That's awful," I said. "What kind of photos?" "Pictures of me, with Dom. But they're taken out of context. It's not what it looks like." "What does it look like?" "Like we're having an affair, but we're not. We're just friends. Someone is trying to sabotage me." "Who would do something like that?" "I don't know, but I'm going to find out. This is harassment, and I'm going to call the police." "You should definitely do that," I said. "The police are very good at investigating harassment. They might even be able to trace where the photos came from." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Alicia, you still there?" "I'm here," she said quietly. "Good. I was worried we'd lost the connection." That afternoon, I got a call from Rich at the pit. "You need to get down here," he said. "Now." "What's wrong?" "Just get here." I drove to the bar and found Rich waiting for me with a grim expression on his face. "Dom Cruz was just here," he said. "He was looking for you." "What did he want?" "To beat the hell out of you, from the sound of it. Apparently, his ex-wife showed up at his shop this morning with a baseball bat and some very unflattering opinions about his character." "That's unfortunate." "Greg, what are you doing? This is getting out of hand." "Is it? Or is it finally getting handled?" Rich stared at me for a long moment. "You're not the same guy who came in here asking hypothetical questions about cheating wives." "No," I said. "I'm not." "Just be careful, okay? Guys like Dom don't like being embarrassed, and they don't usually think things through before they act." "I'll keep that in mind." I left the pit and drove home, where I found Alicia waiting in the kitchen with Susie. They both looked up when I walked in, and I could see the accusation in their eyes. "We need to talk," Alicia said. "About what?" "About the fact that you've been stalking me and taking pictures and sending them to people." "Have I? That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" "Don't play games with me, Greg. I know it was you." "You know a lot of things that aren't true," I said. "Like how I'm too weak to leave you and too scared to confront you about anything." Susie spoke up for the first time. "Greg, whatever you think is happening—" "I don't think anything," I said, cutting her off. "I know exactly what's happening. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Alicia's phone rang, and she glanced at it nervously. "It's Dom," she said. "You should answer it," I said. "He probably has some interesting news to share." She answered the phone, and I could hear Dom's voice even from across the room. He was shouting, and he sounded furious. "He did what?" Alicia said. "When?" More shouting from Dom. Okay, calm down, we'll figure this out. She hung up and looked at me with something approaching fear. His shop was vandalized, she said. Someone spray-painted homewrecker on the side of the building. That's terrible, I said. Did he call the police? He can't call the police because he thinks you did it. And if the police get involved, they'll start asking questions about why someone would call him a homewrecker. Sounds like a real dilemma, I said. Susie stood up abruptly. I should go, she said. This is between you two. Actually, I said, I think you should stay. After all, you're the one who's been helping Alicia plan all of this. Susie's face went pale. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. You've been covering for her, providing alibis, probably even encouraging the whole thing. The question is why. I'm her friend. That's what friends do. Is it? Or is this about the fact that I fired you 5 years ago for stealing from my company? The room went silent. Alicia looked back and forth between Susie and me, confusion replacing anger on her face. You never told her, did you? I said to Susie. About why you really hate me. About why you've been pushing her to destroy our marriage. That's not, Susie started. It's not what? Not true? Not relevant? Not part of your plan? Alicia was staring at Susie now. What is he talking about? Susie looked trapped, and I could see her trying to figure out how to spin the situation. It doesn't matter, she said finally. What matters is that your husband is stalking you and harassing people. That's against the law. So is adultery, I said. In this state, it's grounds for divorce, and it affects the division of assets. Did you know that, Alicia? My wife's face had gone white. She was finally beginning to understand that this wasn't a game, and she wasn't in control. I want you both to leave, I said quietly. Now. This is my house too, Alicia said. Actually, it's not. It's my house. I bought it before we got married, and it's in my name. You live here because I allow it. You can't just throw me out. I'm not throwing you out. I'm asking you to leave voluntarily while we figure out how to handle this situation. Unless you'd prefer to stay and discuss your affair in front of Nikki when she gets home from her friend's house. Alicia grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Susie followed her, but she paused in the doorway and looked back at me. This isn't over, she said. No, I agreed. It's not. After they left, I sat in my kitchen and looked around at the house I'd worked so hard to build and maintain. Everything was exactly where it should be, clean and organized and functional. But underneath the surface, it was all falling apart. Just like my marriage, just like my life. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe it was time to tear it all down and build something new, something better, something that was actually mine. The house felt different without Alicia in it. Quieter, but also somehow more alive, like a patient finally able to breathe after a long illness. I spent Sunday morning cleaning and organizing, putting things back where they belonged and throwing away items that reminded me of better times that had probably never been as good as I remembered. Nikki came home around noon, and I could see the questions in her eyes before she even spoke. "Where's Mom?" she asked. "She's staying with Aunt Susie for a few days," I said. "We're having some problems, and we thought it would be better if we had some space to work things out." "What kind of problems?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and tried to decide how much truth a 16-year-old could handle. "The kind that adults create when they stop being honest with each other," I said finally. "Are you getting divorced?" "I don't know yet. Maybe." Nikki nodded like she'd been expecting this answer. "A lot of my friends' parents are divorced. It's not that big a deal anymore. How do you feel about that possibility?" She shrugged. "I guess it depends on whether you and Mom are happier apart than together. You haven't seemed very happy lately. Neither has your mother." "No," she agreed. "She hasn't." We spent the rest of the day together, watching movies and ordering pizza. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in months, and I think Nikki felt it too. Without Alicia's constant tension and drama, we were able to just be ourselves. That evening, my phone started ringing. First Alicia, then Susie, then Dom. I let them all go to voicemail and listened to the messages later. Alicia: Greg, we need to talk. This has gone too far, and we need to figure out how to fix it. Susie: You're making a huge mistake. Alicia loves you, and you're going to lose everything if you keep this up. Dom: I don't know what your problem is, man, but you need to back off. This is between you and your wife. I erased all 3 messages and went to bed. Monday morning brought new developments. I was at my first service call when my phone rang. It was Janet from the bank. Mr. Mallory, I wanted to let you know that Mrs. Mallory came in this morning trying to access the joint account. When she discovered the changes you'd made, she became quite upset. I imagine she did. She's demanding that we reverse the transfers and restore her access to the credit cards. And what did you tell her? That only you could authorize those changes, since you're the primary account holder. She said she was going to call her lawyer. That's her right, I said. But the account changes stay in place. Understood. I just wanted to keep you informed. My next call was from Alicia's boss, Mr. Harris. Mr. Mallory, this is David Harris from Meridian Tech. I wonder if we could meet to discuss the situation with your wife. What situation is that? The photos that were sent to our HR department. We're conducting an investigation, and we'd like to get your perspective on the matter. I'm not sure what perspective I could offer. I'm not involved in your investigation. Well, the photos appear to show your wife in a compromising situation with someone who isn't you. We thought you might have some insight into the circumstances. My wife's personal life is her own business, I said. If it affects her work performance, that's between you and her. I see. Well, if you change your mind, please give me a call. That afternoon, I decided to pay a visit to Dom's auto shop. I wanted to see the spray paint damage for myself, and I was curious about how he was handling the pressure. The shop was open, but there were no customers in sight. Dom was in the main bay, working on a car with more aggression than skill. When he saw me walk in, he straightened up and reached for a wrench. You've got some nerve showing up here, he said. It's a public business, I replied. I'm thinking about having some work done on my truck. Get out. That's not very good customer service. No wonder your business is struggling. Dom took a step toward me, the wrench still in his hand. I said, get out. Or what? You'll hit me with that wrench? In front of the security cameras you installed after someone vandalized your building? He glanced up at the cameras, and I could see him calculating the consequences. What do you want? He asked. I want you to understand something, I said. You think you're the victim here, but you're not. You're a predator who targeted a married woman because you thought her husband was too weak to fight back. Your wife came after me, not the other way around. Did she? Or did someone else put the idea in her head? What are you talking about? I'm talking about Susie Ferris. You know, the woman who's been orchestrating this whole thing as revenge against me. Dom's expression changed. Susie? What does she have to do with anything? Everything. She's the one who introduced you to Alicia. She's the one who's been encouraging the affair. She's the one who's been feeding you information about my schedule and my habits. That's crazy. Is it? When did you first meet my wife, Dom? He hesitated. At the gym. Right. And who introduced you? Another hesitation. I don't remember. I think you do. I think it was Susie. And I think she told you exactly what to say and how to approach Alicia. Dom set down the wrench and stared at me. Even if that's true, so what? Your wife still chose to cheat on you. Yes, she did. And now she's paying the price for that choice, just like you are. What's that supposed to mean? It means your business is ruined, your reputation is shot, and your ex-wife is probably going to cause you more problems than you can imagine. All because you let yourself be used by a woman who doesn't care about anyone but herself. I turned and walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. By the way, Dom, you might want to ask Susie what she gets out of all this. Because I guarantee you, it's not your happiness. I left him standing there and drove to my next appointment, but I wasn't done yet. That evening, I called Maria Santos, Dom's ex-wife. Mrs. Santos, this is Greg Mallory. We spoke yesterday about your ex-husband. What do you want now? I wanted to give you some information that might be useful if you're considering taking legal action against Dom. What kind of information? Financial records showing that he's been using business funds for personal expenses, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, gifts, all paid for with money that should have been going to child support. There was a long pause. How did you get this information? I have my ways. Are you interested? Send it to me. I emailed her the documents I'd gathered during my research, then sat back and waited for the next phase of my plan to unfold. Tuesday brought a call from Rich. You need to be careful, he said. Word is getting around that Dom is looking for you and he's not planning to have a conversation. Let him look. Greg, I'm serious. This guy is unstable, and he's got nothing left to lose. Neither do I. That's what I'm worried about. That afternoon, I got a text message from an unknown number. Meet me at the old quarry tonight at 8 p.m. Come alone. D. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, see you there. The quarry was an abandoned limestone pit about 10 miles outside of town. It had been closed for 20 years, but kids still went there to party and couples used it as a makeout spot. It was also isolated enough that no one would hear us if things got loud. I arrived at 7:30 and parked behind a stand of trees where my truck wouldn't be visible from the road. Then I walked to the edge of the quarry and waited. Dom showed up right on time, driving his pickup truck with the headlights off. He parked near the edge of the pit and got out, leaving the engine running. You came, he said. You asked me to. I want this to end, all of it. The harassment, the vandalism, the threats, everything. What threats? Don't play dumb. You know what you've been doing. I know what I've been doing, I said. The question is, do you know what you've been doing? I made a mistake, okay? I got involved with your wife and I shouldn't have. But it's over now. Is it? Yes. Alicia and I are done. She's going back to you and I'm leaving town. Where are you going? Somewhere else, anywhere else. This place is finished for me. I nodded. That's probably smart. So, we're good? No more problems? That depends. On what? On whether you're telling me the truth about Susie Farris. Dom's expression changed. What about her? I think she's been manipulating both of you from the beginning. I think this whole affair was her idea, and I think she's been playing you and Alicia against each other for her own purposes. That's insane. Is it? Think about it, Dom. How did you really meet Alicia? Who suggested that you approach her? Who gave you information about her schedule and her interests? Dom was quiet for a long moment. Susie introduced us at the gym. She said Alicia was unhappy in her marriage and might be interested in meeting someone new. And you believed her? Why wouldn't I? Susie's a friend of Alicia's. Susie's not anyone's friend. She's been using you to get revenge on me, and she's been using Alicia to destroy my marriage. Why would she want to do that? Because I fired her 5 years ago for stealing from my company, and she's been planning her payback ever since. Dom stared at me, and I could see him putting the pieces together. You're saying this was all a setup? I'm saying you were a weapon, Dom. And now that the damage is done, Susie doesn't need you anymore. But Alicia was a victim too. Susie knew exactly which buttons to push to make her feel dissatisfied with her life. She probably spent months planting seeds of doubt and resentment before she ever introduced you. Dom sat down heavily on a boulder near the edge of the quarry. Jesus, what have I done? You made some bad choices, I said. But you're not the only one. So what happens now? Now you disappear like you planned, and you hope that Maria doesn't decide to take you to court for back child support. And Alicia? Alicia and I will figure out our own problems. And Susie? I smiled, but there was no humor in it. Susie's about to learn what happens when you try to destroy someone who's got nothing left to lose. Dom looked up at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something like respect in his eyes. "You're not what I expected," he said. "Neither was my wife. Neither was my marriage. Neither was my life. I'm sorry, man, for all of it. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix anything." Dom nodded and stood up. "I'll be gone by the end of the week." "That's probably best." He walked back to his truck and drove away, leaving me alone at the edge of the quarry. I stood there for a while, looking down into the dark water and thinking about choices and consequences, and the strange ways that people's lives intersect and destroy each other. Then I got in my truck and drove home to plan the final phase of my revenge. Wednesday morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in months. The end game was approaching, and I could see all the pieces falling into place exactly as I'd planned them. My first call was to the principal at Nikki's school. "Mr. Davidson, this is Greg Mallory, Nikki's father. I wanted to let you know that my wife and I are separating, and there might be some custody issues in the near future." "I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Mallory. How can we help?" "I just want to make sure that only I am authorized to pick up Nikki from school until this situation is resolved. My wife is going through some personal problems, and I'm not sure she's making the best decisions right now." "I understand. We'll make a note in Nikki's file." "Thank you. I also wanted to let you know that if anyone calls asking about our family situation, you should refer them to me directly." "Of course." Next, I called my lawyer, Tom Bradley. Tom had handled the legal work when I bought the house and started my business, and I trusted him to give me straight answers. "Tom, I need to know my options for a divorce. My wife has been having an affair, and I have documentation to prove it." "That's unfortunate, Greg. How do you want to proceed?" "I want to make sure I keep the house and my business, and I want to minimize what she gets in the settlement. In this state, adultery can definitely affect the division of assets. What kind of documentation do you have?" "Photos, text messages, witness statements, enough to make her case very difficult." "Good. I'll draw up some preliminary papers and we can discuss your options." "How long will that take?" "A few days. Are you in a hurry?" "Let's just say I want to be prepared when the time comes." That afternoon, I drove to the Riverside Inn, the hotel where Alicia had claimed her work event was taking place. I spoke to the manager, a middle-aged woman named Carol who seemed eager to help. "I'd like to book your conference room for this Saturday evening," I said. "I'm planning a surprise party for my wife." "How lovely! What kind of event did you have in mind?" "Just a small gathering, maybe 20 or 30 people, friends, family, co-workers, the kind of people who really know Alicia and care about her." "That sounds wonderful. What time were you thinking?" 7 o'clock, and I'd like to arrange for some audio-visual equipment, a projector and screen, maybe a sound system." "We can definitely accommodate that. Will you be serving food?" "Just appetizers and drinks. Nothing too elaborate." "Perfect. Let me get you some pricing information." After I finished at the hotel, I drove to the local print shop and ordered invitations for Saturday's event. The text was simple and direct. "You're invited to a special presentation about Alicia Mallory. Come learn the truth about someone you thought you knew. Saturday, 7 p.m., Riverside Inn Conference Room." I had them print 50 invitations and include a list of recipients: Alicia's co-workers, neighbors, friends from the gym, PTA members, and anyone else who had been part of her social circle. On Thursday, I hand-delivered the invitations. Most people seemed puzzled by the vague wording, but they all promised to attend. Curiosity is a powerful motivator. That evening, I got a call from Alicia. She sounded desperate. "Greg, please, we need to talk. This has gone too far." "Has it?" "Yes. I've lost my job, Dom is leaving town, and Susie is acting like this is all my fault." "Isn't it?" "Some of it, yes, but not all of it." I made mistakes, but I never meant for things to get this out of hand. What did you think would happen, Alicia? Did you think I'd just ignore it forever? I don't know what I thought. I was confused and unhappy, and Susie kept telling me that you didn't care about me anymore. And you believed her? She's my best friend. Why wouldn't I believe her? Because she's not your friend, Alicia. She's been using you to get revenge on me. That's ridiculous. Is it? When did she start encouraging you to be dissatisfied with our marriage? When did she first suggest that you deserved better? When did she introduce you to Dom? There was a long silence. Think about it, I continued. Really think about the timeline and the way she's been manipulating the situation. Even if that's true, it doesn't excuse what I did. No, it doesn't. But it might explain why you did it. So what happens now? Now you come to the hotel on Saturday night and face the consequences of your choices. What hotel? What are you talking about? You'll find out. 7 o'clock, Riverside Inn conference room. Greg, please don't do this. Whatever you're planning, it's going to hurt Nikki too. Nikki already knows the truth. She's stronger than you think. Please. I hung up and turned off my phone. I was done talking. Friday was spent making final preparations. I uploaded all of my evidence, photos, text messages, financial records, to a presentation that would tell the complete story of Alicia's affair and Susie's manipulation. I also prepared printed copies of everything for anyone who wanted to take them home. I picked up Nikki from school and took her to Rich's bar for dinner. Dad, what's really going on? She asked. Mom called me crying, and she keeps saying you're going to humiliate her in public. Your mother made some choices that hurt our family, I said. Tomorrow night, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what those choices were. Is that really necessary? Yes, it is. Your mother and her friends have been lying to people about me for months. They've been spreading rumors and making me look like a fool. Tomorrow night, I'm going to set the record straight. And then what? And then we start over. Just you and me, if that's what you want. Nikki considered this. Will I still be able to see Mom? Of course. She's still your mother, and I would never try to keep you away from her. But things are going to be different. Different how? More honest. No more lies. No more games. No more pretending that everything is fine when it's not. Nikki nodded. I think I'd like that. Saturday arrived gray and cold, with the kind of wind that cuts through your jacket and makes you want to stay inside. But I had work to do. I arrived at the hotel early to set up the audio-visual equipment and make sure everything was working properly. The conference room was perfect, intimate enough to feel personal, but large enough to accommodate everyone I'd invited. At 6:30, people started arriving. Alicia's co-workers came first, followed by neighbors and friends from the gym. Everyone seemed curious and slightly nervous, like they weren't sure what they were walking into. At 7 o'clock sharp, I walked to the front of the room and turned on the projector. Thank you all for coming, I said. I know the invitation was a bit mysterious, but I wanted to share some information about my wife that I think you'll find interesting. I clicked to the first slide, which showed a timeline of Alicia's affair with Dom Cruz. For the past 4 months, my wife has been conducting an extramarital relationship with Dom Cruz, a local mechanic. She's been lying to me, to our daughter, and to all of you about where she's been and what she's been doing. A murmur went through the crowd. I could see people looking around at each other, trying to process what they were hearing. I clicked to the next slide, which showed some of the text messages from Alicia's burner phone. These are actual messages between my wife and her lover. As you can see, they're quite explicit about their relationship and their opinion of me. More murmuring, louder this time. Someone in the back of the room gasped. I continued through the presentation, showing photos of Alicia entering Dom's shop, financial records of hotel visits, and documentation of the lies she'd told to cover her tracks. But the most interesting part of this story, I said, clicking to a new section, is the role played by Susie Ferris, who many of you know as Alicia's best friend and a local real estate agent. I showed the timeline of how Susie had orchestrated the affair, including her history with my company and her motivation for revenge. Susie has been manipulating my wife for months, encouraging her dissatisfaction with our marriage and introducing her to Dom Cruz. This entire affair was planned and executed as revenge against me for firing her 5 years ago. The room was completely silent now. I could see shock and disgust on people's faces as they realized how they'd been manipulated and lied to. I'm sharing this information with you, I concluded, because my wife and her accomplices have been spreading lies about me for months. They've portrayed me as weak, oblivious, and pathetic. Tonight, I want you to see the truth about who the real victims are in this situation. I turned off the projector and faced the crowd. Are there any questions? A woman from Alicia's work raised her hand. Where is Alicia? Shouldn't she be here to defend herself? I invited her, I said. Whether she chooses to attend is up to her. As if on cue, the conference room door opened and Alicia walked in, followed by Susie. They both looked like they'd been through a war, pale, exhausted, and desperate. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, the stars of our show have arrived. Alicia walked to the front of the room, her hands shaking. Greg, please stop this, she said. You've made your point. Have I? Because I don't think everyone understands yet how this all worked. I turned to address the crowd again. You see, my wife didn't just wake up one day and decide to have an affair. She was carefully manipulated by someone she trusted, someone who knew exactly which emotional buttons to push. I pointed to Susie, who was standing near the door like she was planning to run. Susie Ferris spent months poisoning my wife against me, telling her she deserved better, encouraging her to be dissatisfied with her life. And when Alicia was vulnerable enough, Susie introduced her to Dom Cruz and helped facilitate their relationship. That's not true, Susie said, but her voice was weak and unconvincing. Isn't it? Then explain why you never told Alicia that I fired you for stealing from my company. Explain why you've been so eager to help her destroy our marriage. Explain why you've been covering for her and providing alibis. Susie looked around the room at the faces staring back at her, and I could see her calculating whether she could talk her way out of this. You're all missing the point, she said finally. Greg is an abusive husband who's been controlling and manipulating Alicia for years. I was trying to help her escape from a toxic situation. Is that right? I said. Then let's ask Alicia. In front of all these people who know us both, tell them about how I've been abusive and controlling. Alicia looked around the room, and I could see her trying to find words that would make this all go away. Greg isn't abusive, she said quietly. He's a good man. I made mistakes, and I'm sorry. But Susie told you I was controlling, didn't she? I pressed. She told you that you deserved better, that I was holding you back, that I would never leave you because I was too weak. Yes, Alicia whispered. And you believed her because she was your friend. Yes. I turned back to Susie. Anything else you'd like to add? Susie looked around the room one more time, then headed for the door. This is insane, she said. You're all insane. She left, and the room erupted in conversation. People were talking over each other, asking questions, expressing shock and disgust. Some of them were looking at Alicia with sympathy, others with contempt. I raised my hand for quiet. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I know this has been uncomfortable, but I felt it was important for you to know the truth. Copies of all the documentation are available on the table by the door if anyone wants them. People started filing out, some stopping to take copies of the evidence, others avoiding eye contact with Alicia and me. Within 10 minutes, the room was empty, except for my wife and me. Are you satisfied now? Alicia asked. Are you? I replied. She sat down in one of the chairs and put her head in her hands. I've lost everything, she said. My job, my reputation, my marriage, everything. You lost those things when you decided to have an affair. Tonight was just the accounting. So what happens now? Now you decide what kind of person you want to be going forward, and I decide whether I want to try to rebuild something with that person. And if you decide you don't, then we get divorced, and you start over somewhere else. Alicia looked up at me, and for the first time in months, I saw something real in her eyes. Not manipulation, not calculation, just exhaustion and regret. I'm sorry, Greg, for all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry. I know you are, I said. But sorry isn't enough anymore. I walked to the door and paused. You have until Monday to decide what you want to do. After that, I'm filing for divorce. I left her sitting in the empty conference room and walked out into the cold night air. My phone was buzzing with text messages and missed calls, but I ignored them all. I had done what I came to do. The masks had fallen, the truth was out, and everyone could see exactly who they'd been dealing with all along. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not the broken lamp that Alicia had described, not the weak man that Susie had counted on, but someone who knew his own worth and wasn't afraid to fight for it. I got in my truck and drove home to my daughter, who was waiting with pizza and questions about what happened at the hotel. I told her the truth, because that's what we were going to do from now on. Tell the truth, face the consequences, and build something better from whatever was left standing. The night the masks fell was over. Tomorrow, we would start building something real.